Aloha, I'm Cullen Hayashida, and I would like to welcome you to the Kupuna Connections television series on Olelo Community Television. This is brought to you by Kapi'olani Community College's Kupuna Education Center. And this week we are very fortunate to have some discussions having to do with how to access low-income senior apartments in Hawaii. And as we have more and more seniors in our community, and the need for housing obviously is very apparent, and the cost obviously is very significant. Learning how to access low-income senior apartment is very important. Now, so let me first of all start off with our co-host, Tony, to introduce yourself and our guests as well.
My name is Tony Hathaway, and I'm a licensed social worker, and I'm the education coordinator for the Kupuna Education Center.
And I'm Betty Lou Larson. I worked for about 30 years with Catholic Charities Hawai'i and their housing programs, and now I'm the legislative liaison for housing issues.
And I should mention that Betty Lou Larson is actually, I consider, one of the foremost experts in senior housing in Hawaii. We've known each other for decades now,
yes.
Right? Decades now, and certainly have appreciated all her great wisdom and knowledge, and she shared it just so well with the entire community. So thank you so much for being with us today.
Happy to be here.
So let's start out, Betty Lou, and get some statistics and some trends straight first. Perhaps you can share with us about, what is low-income senior apartments? Do we have enough? Is there a growing need? What's happening in this area?
Well, senior apartments they have different types, but basically they're apartments that have been developed with government funding, so that means they offer a more affordable rent. They have income limits because there is government money involved, so you have to have an income within the limits, and it varies by the project. They also have limits on the rent, so the rents don't go up as fast as market rents might in the community. Do we have enough? Well, there's never enough. Unfortunately, with the wave of elderly, we're kind of falling behind. We have been building some over the last few years of what we call affordable rentals, but it's never enough, and therefore the wait lists are quite high. On Oahu, there's over 50 senior low-cost apartments, but still that's not enough. And the neighbor islands also have these type of units, but of course not as many as on Oahu.
Okay, so what is a wait list like when we say not enough?
Mm-hmm. Well, there's, as I mentioned, two types. One is what's called affordable housing, which is a fixed rent. That means once you qualify, your rent is fixed. For example, one bedroom could run anywhere from $550 up to $700 a month, and that's the rent. You pay that rent. The other type of project is where you pay 30% of your income for rent. So if your income's $1,000, you'd only pay $300 for rent and utilities. Well, obviously, guess which one has the higher wait list? The 30%, where you pay 30% of your income. In Honolulu, that wait list is maybe 3 to 5 years to get in. Now, the other ones that are, quote, affordable could range from a few months out of town to probably 1 to 2 years in Honolulu. There are two right now, Kalanahale, which is right near Foodland Veritania, and that has a lower wait list because the rents are higher. They're more towards $800 a month. But you might be able to get in 6 months there. And I say it's like a ping pong ball. The wait lists go up and down. But the difference is it might be a year versus 3 to 5 years.
So,
well, I guess it sounds like there are basically two types. One, you pay a percentage of your income, and one is a fixed rate. So how is that? I mean, what's the difference? Why do we have two types?
Well, the difference is that the older ones that would build usually with the HUD monies can offer these big subsidies. Obviously, if someone's paying $300 a month, that's not even paying for repairs in the unit. So there's another government subsidy that's paying that rent.
Oh, I see.
So those are the older buildings. Mm-hmm. Those are maybe 30 to 40 years old. The newer ones from the 1990s, basically the federal government stopped investing in this type of housing. There's been about 20 units a year coming in of money to build these projects that offer 30% your income for rent.
20 units a
only
year.
20 units
Wow,
a year.
that's not very
20
many,
apartment
is it?
rooms?
Yes, 20
Yeah.
apartments a year in funding. So
I
of course,
see.
not very much gets built,
Uh-huh.
and only for senior housing, nothing for family housing, senior disabled housing. So what they did in the 1990s is they started things like tax credits and other funding mechanisms that the federal government uses, and the state gets these. We also have a state funding, and those build these apartments, but they try to, they're trying to get as many units as possible. The deeper the subsidy, the fewer the units. So if you have a rent at $500 to $700, that's about as low as they can get. And so that's great compared with a one bedroom that's now maybe $1,000, $1,200 in the market. But still, you know, $500 to $700 is tough for some people. What we've done as advocates is in one funding source called the Rental Housing Trust Fund, 5% of those units must be for people at 30% of income or below. So if their income is 30% of the median income, they're eligible for a unit where maybe the rent is $350 to $400 a month. But that's only 5% of the units in these buildings. So,
Okay.
you know, you have to be careful. And the other big difference is different rules means different eligibility.
Okay. Well, clearly there's quite a bit of information, and I'm sure that our viewers didn't get all of that. Okay.
Right.
But let's see some photos now of some of these sites, and perhaps you can kind of share with us a little bit about where these places are and some
Right.
things about them. Let's see some of these photos.
And these are very nice. These are one of the vistas where there's about 6 of them, Kalakaua Avenue, P.E. Koi. These are about 50 to 70 units. They're mostly one bedroom. Some have a few 2 bedrooms. And again, these rents are right now around maybe $685 for a 1 bedroom, maybe in the 700s for a...
And the next one here?
Yeah. This gives you a view of what it looks like inside. This is actually the Franciscan Vista, a new project out in Eva. Of course, brand new, so no waiting list. Again, $745 for a 1 bedroom. I think it's about $885 for a 2 bedroom, but they have openings right now. So if you're looking for something, and it's a very nice arrangement. They have courtyards. They have kind of groups so that it's a community based, and they have a lot of exercise. They have a lot of wellness. So that's their special feature.
Wow, that's nice. And then next here?
Yeah. Again, this is Franciscan Vistas. You can see how they're around a courtyard, so they're basically trying to build community.
I see.
And they're trying to find ways for seniors to sit, get to know each other, not just live in a building, but live in a community. And I think that's very important for seniors.
Right, right. Okay.
Now again, this is a Halemohalu out in Pearl City. Has a very low wait list because it's Pearl City. The ones in town are longer, but in maybe 3 to 6 months, someone can get into here. This is one of my favorite projects. It has a big koi pond, banyan trees, walking paths. So they really do have some nice amenities. And again, it's usually the studio 1 and 2 bedrooms here.
Okay.
This again is showing what the outside looks like. So you can see there's a lot of greenery, a lot of walking in the Pearl City area. They're building a new project right next to that, Halemohalu 2. So there will be again a new project. This is about 15 years old, but it still looks very nice. And that's one thing about senior housing. People think, oh, low-income housing, this is run down, terrible. No, these are very nice projects. They look like condos often,
Yeah, they
and
do
they're
look nice.
usually well-maintained. A lot of them now are 10 or 15 years old, the newer ones, but they're well-maintained, and I think they do a good job of keeping things in good condition.
Okay.
Again, some of the projects have amenities like community rooms. Most of them have community rooms where seniors can meet. In the Vistas, they always have a big screen TV. This is Kulanahale near Beretania and Kalakaua. Sometimes they'll have exercise rooms or exercise machines that people can enjoy. They also have libraries. So in other words, ways for people to gather. Kulanahale, being a high-rise, doesn't have grounds, but they have amenities inside that people can enjoy.
This is like a library?
This is like a library, and, yeah. And often they have computers that are free for the tenants to use, so they can come in. Again, this is out in Wahiawa, a nice project where you pay 30% of your income for rent. So this is one of the state projects that they had built, maybe 20 years ago. As you
Still
can
looks
see,
pretty nice, huh?
looks very nice, yeah. In Wahiawa, right in walking distance to all the different things. This is an older building, again, one of the old HUD buildings, Malulani Hale, but it's right on Nu'uanu Stream, right on off of Nu'uanu Avenue near Kuakini Hospital. Yeah. So again, these are in very good locations. They're all on bus routes because for seniors that's very important. So they have handy van service, of course, that goes in there. But as you can see the stream there by in there, they have greenery. Now some of them, the Vista, the first one we saw, also have social services on site. That owner has decided they want to have aging in place services. So some of them, you know, different buildings have different services. Okay. But basically it's housing. Their focus is housing, affordable housing.
Okay.
This is a cute one downtown, Nalehulu, Kupuna, right near that park in Kaka'ako, Mother Waldron Park. And these are studio units, but they all have a little bay window that looks out onto the park. And again, these are rent for, I think it's still $350 a month. If you have a low income, it goes up to $550 a month.
Very
so
colorful,
there's a range.
huh?
Very colorful. And this is interesting because the rents are hard to determine sometimes because it varies by your income in some cases. Like this goes from $350 to $550 and then it's capped. Other ones, it's 30% of your income, you know, no matter what your income is. So if you're higher income, you'll of course pay a lot more. You might pay more than $500 or $600 if your income is higher.
I see. I think that's about all that we have right now. So, well, you got one more here.
Yeah, Westlock is one of my favorite. It's out in Eva, but it has the grounds. It's very Hawaiian. It's one of the old buildings old projects that the city built when they were doing a lot of their building in the 90s. They're all cottage style. There's just 10 units per building. So again, for people who want a more rural lifestyle, they have this out in the more low-rise are out of town, whereas the high or mid-rises are more in Honolulu.
Okay.
I see. So if I were a senior and I needed to have some housing fairly soon, where would I find it? How would I go about it?
Well, most seniors want Honolulu, but if you need something right away, we would suggest to consider moving outside of town and doing what we call a two-step process. Get something soon, stay on the wait list in town, and then move into town. For example, La'iolo that we saw is you pay 30% of your income. Some seniors only pay $100, $150 a month. If they can't afford $500, $600 a month, those are some possible options because it may be in 3 to 6 months you can get into something out of town, or under a year anyway. They're very possibly. And then you wait and stay on the wait list for the town projects. And as you notice, they're very nice out of town. They're often more low-rise and they have grounds because they have more land often than the town projects.
So where would I go to get started?
As you can tell, this is complicated.
Yeah,
There's many rules, many different eligibility. And so the city has worked with Catholic Charities to put on their website what's called the Oahu Housing Guide. And that is a guide of all the affordable projects, both senior housing and family projects. So this is available to seniors who want to live with children or grandchildren or families looking for housing.
So we have on our website the elderlyaffairs.com website.
Right, and you'll go there and look for the Oahu Housing Guide. And that way you can look through all the 50 projects and look in on what is the rent, what's the eligibility, is it a studio, 1 bedroom? And that's updated every year with Catholic Charities. So we try to get the most current, but always check because things do change. Yeah. And so if you're interested, we suggest go and apply, and you can always go out and look at the projects later.
Right. Well, that's a very good phone number, website to remember. And that's probably one of the best resources that we have on the topic of housing.
Right. Yeah. So that's really the best place to go for everything. Now, the other thing is some people go and they say, wow, there's so much information. How do I decide? Or have I missed anything? And that's where Catholic Charities has a special program to help counsel elders. If you're 60 years and older, you can go to the Housing Assistance Program. And I think we're going to have the number on the screen, 524-HOPE. You can call in. Now, unfortunately, we do have a wait list for services. We try to take seniors who are facing homelessness or in an abusive situation first. So those we try to serve within a month. But right now, the wait list, if it's not an urgent situation, is running maybe 3 to 5 months.
That's not too bad.
Not too bad because, we'll come in, sit down with you, help you with the applications, teach you the tricks. Like, it's not only applying, but it's also calling every 6 months, to make sure you stay on the wait list, because often they'll throw you off the wait list if you don't call and update your application or tell them you're still interested. Or if you move, you don't tell them, they can't find you. So everyone has the same chance, but we can tell you some of the things to watch out for so you don't miss out on your chance of
Now,
getting in.
524 HOPE, what numbers are HOPE?
I thought I was afraid you were going to ask me that. Look on your dial pad, please. I'm not a mathematician. I'm not good at this.
Okay.
But HOPE, HOPE, 524 HOPE.
Got
and
it.
ask for the Housing Assistance Program for Elders.
Okay. We were talking briefly about qualifications, and perhaps you can share a little bit more with regards to who qualifies for homes like this.
Well, it differs by the project, and so there's many different qualifications. Generally, some projects you have to be 55 and older.
Okay.
Sometimes you have to be 62 and older. So if you're 62 and older, you've got it made.
Okay.
If your spouse is under 62, you have to be careful, because sometimes everyone has to be 55 and older. Everyone has to be 62. Other times, if one person meets the age requirement, the spouse is okay. So that's where it's good to look at the housing guide or to get some information, because it can be technical.
Okay.
The other thing is, I mentioned there's always income limits. So there's maximum income. It's called low income, but to me, it's not really low income, because a lot of them are based on 50% of median. That's $30,000 a year for one person, over $30,000 a year.
30,000 is considered median?
Yeah, for
Okay.
50% of median. 50% of median. And a lot of these projects, you have to be within 50% of median. Some of them, it goes up to 60% of median. So then your income for one person could be even higher. Of course, couples would be more. So this would cover a lot of our seniors with their relatively low incomes. The Section 8 buildings that we saw, where you pay 30% of your income, those would be 50% of median. So you have to have, one person would have to have an income under 30,000 in order to get on the waiting list and of course, meet the age requirement.
So what is Section 8? Because I think that's something sometimes you hear about, and I guess some of those are available for seniors also.
People hear that. Section 8 is a government program that comes in and they help pay the rent. So you pay your share, which is 30% of your income, and the government pays the rest. Now there's two types of programs, and that makes it confusing. You'll hear about vouchers. The city and the state have a voucher, which is called a hunting license. They give it to you, and you go out and find a unit. So you can find your own apartment anywhere. But other times, it's the building itself has the Section 8. So when you move in, you automatically pay 30% of your income. You don't have to go find it. You don't have to stand in line, and often you just never get chosen. You have a voucher, you can't find a place. Maybe you turn it back unused. But on the Section 8 buildings, once you get in, you have that ongoing.
What about public housing? We've got many projects that are family housing projects and low-income public housing. Are those also available for older adults as well?
Well, they do have about, I think it's 6 or 7 senior projects under public housing. It's called Hawai'i Public Housing Authority now. Currently, there's a preference for homeless. So you have to be homeless coming from a transitional shelter. So there is one elderly transitional shelter right above the Academy of Arts, Kulokuhua. So basically there are people from the beaches, elderly from the beaches would be eligible. So right now if you apply, you won't get in. But if they change the rules in the future, some legislators would like to take away that preference, or they're thinking of that, then you would be able to get in. But there are about 14,000 people total on the wait list, so it's a very long wait.
14,000?
For a Hawai'i Public Housing Authority, yeah.
I see.
So right now, people can apply, you're eligible, but because of the preference, right now, unless you're homeless, you're not going to get in. So we encourage people to apply elsewhere where they do have a chance to get in. They just maybe have to wait that 3 to 5 years, because those rents are the same as the public housing. You would pay 30% of your income for rent and utilities. So that's a good deal.
I see.
Well, a little earlier you were starting to talk a little bit about some of the other support services that might be available for seniors in some of the housing projects to allow them to age in place.
Right.
What would some of those services be?
Well, the VISAs are interesting because in the development of we call them the vistas because it's the Vista project. It's Kalakaua Vista, Wisteria Vista. This is usually the street that they're near. Wisteria Vista, the old Wisteria was closed down, but this is right across the street from where it used to be. And it was there when they built it, so they call it Wisteria Vista. It's looking out on the Wisteria. They've got Kinau Vista, Pi'ikoi Vista, all based on the streets. And so they, in their development, put in a room for case management, so there's a social worker on site. They put in monies to hire services, so they have like maybe a part-time, depending on how big they are. They may have someone there maybe 2 days a week to help people stay if they're having issues. Or right now, a lot of it is Medicaid and all the complexities of signing up for Part D of Medicare. They help with all that. A lot of people don't speak English so well, so they need help with these forms. Other projects besides the Vistas may have some services, but not too many. They often have the community room and the social things. And so they might have talks or things, someone come in and talk about diabetes. Some of them, like Hale Mohala, might have a van to take you to places. But most of the projects are just housing. Only a few of them actually have these other services. Now, I should mention one more, Maluhia. That's trying to target frail elders. So that's the one that's more like not really nursing home replacement, but its preference is for people who are more frail, versus regular senior housing is, your independent elder.
Okay. So as far as some of these support services, now Catholic Charities has been involved in providing social services, huh?
Right.
Now, what sort of what do you mean by that, and what kind of services do you folks provide as social services?
Well, the case manager can look at what the situation is, maybe help them to get a chore person in to clean that they might have to pay for or look for money for that. If they need transportation to doctors, they might link them up with Handy Van. If they're going to a meal site, our agency, Catholic Charities, provides vans that take people to and from meal sites, or going shopping once a week from a meal site. So those are the type of services that are often provided. Kind of basic services try to keep people in safe and decent conditions in their own home. Now,
I guess, with all these support services that we're talking about, this is relatively new,
Yes.
In relationship to the decades that we've known each other.
Right.
But this seems to suggest that people are aging. They're in need of more help. What sorts of problems are you beginning to see in some of these apartments?
Well, as people age, they have a lot of losses. And often then that brings depression or other conditions, or just physical losses, right? As well as spouse and even children who pass away before they do. So sometimes it's a matter of trying to provide that friendly counseling if they do need more help. I remember one senior who was going blind, very depressed, and it took the social worker working with her, talking with her, telling her about Ho'opono services, encouraging her, finally taking her there, escorting her to get her. Oh, she became a disciple. That was now her mission in life. She learned how to be more independent. She learned, she went blind, but she learned how to cope with it. And she wants to tell people, and she's just energized by now she has her mission. Even though she's had a lot of losses, she can help others. So, it's trying to find ways that people can still live a good life, even though they may have many losses. But I think mental health, and then just the normal things as you become more frail, and you may need help to maybe get linked up with services that can get you out of the home, get you to the bank, get you shopping, things like that. Maybe a friendly visitor if there are agencies that provide that in your area.
Does Catholic Charities help to create some of these communities that you were talking about, that some of these homes have?
Well, I think when there are, in the Vistas, we actually have a contract that we're in there. And in some of the other projects we are also working in. And so then that's where we do have those social things, as well as trying to bring people together to learn about health conditions or just interesting things they might be interested in. I think the main thing is we're looking to really help people look at their life and be productive, be enjoying their life in whatever way they like, right? Some people don't want to join things, but they want a listening ear. Others like to come out and meet friends and, get involved.
I see.
I have to say, one of them, the big screen TV is big in some places. I went to one, and at 2 o'clock in the afternoon, the 5 little ladies, all ethnicities, are watching the Korean soap operas. That's their daily. They have this great group. They're there every day, and they were so friendly. And they can enjoy each other as well as watching a big screen TV in the community room.
Right. One other question that we had to do with barriers. Are there some barriers associated with, accessing low-income senior apartments?
Unfortunately, there are a lot of barriers, and they're increasing over time. 10, 15 years ago, there were no credit checks for senior housing. That was just unheard of. Now, almost all buildings do credit checks. And what we found is a lot of seniors pay their rent first. They're a good tenant, but that means they get behind on other bills, so they may not have good credit. And that's a real problem for some because they're screened out. Some, for example, prudential locations will accept a rent guarantor. So if you have a family member or friend who says, I know they can pay that rent, maybe they're paying more rent now. They'd be able to pay a cheaper rent, but they don't fit into what's called a minimum income. That's another barrier. A lot of times projects want you to not pay more than 50% of your income on rent. Well, that sounds good, except that means if you're paying $1,000 a month, but you're barely, you have $1,200 a month, and you could well afford $750, but that's more than 50% of your income, then you're screened out. So what we've worked on, for example, the Vistas, is we've persuaded the owner and the management company to consider food stamps as part of that minimum income, because it's just like cash, right? If you have $200 in food stamps and $700, you have $900, right, to spend and do. So these two things, credit checks and minimum income, have screened out a lot of people, especially credit checks. We're amazed how many seniors have bad credit.
Okay, well, that's a good point. One last tip for our viewers. We've got so much that has been discussed and shared with the community. If we had one takeaway from all that we talked about, what would that be?
Start early, get on those wait lists, and don't just apply to 1 or 2 projects because these barriers are there and you don't know when you're going to hit up against one of those.
Okay, good point. Start early and plan ahead.
Yes.
Well, that's about all the time that we have today. And again, thank you very much, Betty Lou Larson, and my co-host, Tony Hathaway from Kupuna Education Center. We are so glad that we had a chance to talk to our community about how to access low-income senior apartment. We've got a lot of information that we shared. The key number, of course, was that 524 HOPE. So for all of you in the community. So thank you again. See you again next week. Aloha.